The next day, I was up early in the morning. I was lying in my bed, very tired and exhausted, but suddenly my phone started ringing. I picked it up, and they started yelling at me that I was still asleep. But I started to say that I was a little tired, but suddenly my sister told me to look at the time and it turned out that it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon. She started yelling even harder that I had to remember that I had to be at school today and preferably by 5 o'clock. I jumped up out of bed abruptly and started telling her that I would make it in time and she shouldn't worry. After showering, I started looking at my clothes and realized that I needed to dress up better. I was going to meet my sister's teacher in a little while after all. I was already at the bank when a girl called out the number 280, and it turned out to be my number. I went up to her and she asked what she could do to help me. I asked her to help me open a new credit card and fund my account. However, this girl was a little confused when she saw the number on the paperwork she was given. Because there was a lot of money in there. For a whole day and 4 billion, she didn't understand where I got such a sum. After all, I looked so young, and she decided to ask me what I was working for. But I answered that I was a hunter, and then she reminded me that people say hunters make decent money. And she's bad that I'm high early on. She started saying that their bank recently started offering new terms for VIP customers and they have good reviews from their customers. And wouldn't I want to give it a try? But I decided not to try it and said I didn't need to. After the bank, I went to school, where my sister met me, but she looked at me differently already. She asked me if I was really her brother, but I didn't understand what was wrong. She started asking me if people could change so much in such a short period of time. But I started to tell her that I had a meeting with my sister's teacher and if she wanted me to come in my gym clothes. And as soon as we started walking along, all the students looked at me strangely, especially the older girls in high school. All the girls who were passing by, I wondered who I was and what kind of a hottie was walking around. They realized that apparently it was my brother. Din's sister started asking me what it turns out in this school I'm pretty popular and started further questioning that I do not have a girlfriend. So what was I doing last night since I came so late? And maybe she introduced me to a cute student, but I took her cheek and started saying not to mock me, and soon after she started apologizing. We finally got to the conference room, and as soon as I opened the door I saw the woman stood up and started saying that it was a pleasure to meet me since she was my sister's teacher. She didn't know Jean had such a cool brother. I started walking into the office and realized that even though I had already graduated from the school, this was my first time seeing this teacher. She asked me to sit down in a chair and started telling me that I didn't have to worry about my sister because she had a nice personality and good disposition and was a model student. So the teacher didn't see any point in worrying about anything. Then the teacher started talking, asking if I knew that my sister aspired to go to medical school. I replied that I knew because her grades were good and her academic record was also fine, so she could do well. However, I shouldn't put too much pressure on her. The teacher went on to say that she had heard that I was working as a hunter. If I had found out that my sister had discovered abilities, would I have let her work as a hunter? Of course not. The teacher sighed and said, as I expected, because the reason she's been asking about this lately is because there's a student who's trying to quit school after going through the awakening, and now that student doesn't attend school at all. And if this continues, the school will have no choice but to accept into the worlds. And even if someone becomes a hunter, does that prevent them from getting a diploma? Since the teacher doesn't know much about hunters, she decided to ask me. But I interrupted the teacher and asked what rank this student got. She replied that she had heard that it was the lowest rank. I began to realize that this student would die sooner or later. The teacher asked me if there was anything I could do for her. After all, this student happens to be a friend of my sister's. So I asked permission to talk to her so that she could at least get ready to graduate. When the teacher said it was a student named Han Song, I knew who she was talking about. A little later, when I finished talking to the teacher, I had already gone outside and realized that, after all, Korea is really small. And when I saw this girl, I immediately thought it was her. But when she saw me, she didn't understand why I was here. I remember this girl telling me that even children are allowed to go on raids. If you wake up as a child, there's no law against going on raids. And when I met her outside the school, she didn't understand what happened. After all, the hunter her teacher wanted her to meet was me. Taking my phone out of my pocket, I showed her a picture of my sister and asked her, "You two are friends, aren't you?" When she saw that picture, she realized that maybe I was Jean's brother. One day she visited me in the hospital with her, but she didn't see my face. She started asking me if I was Jean's brother. Then it became clear why I knew her teacher. But I answered that we didn't know each other at all. This girl started to say that she didn't know what her teacher had told me, but that she wasn't planning on going back to school and wasn't going to give up hunting. However, I convinced her and asked her that she is, after all, an E-rank hunter and normal attacks don't work on monsters. She needs magical weapons. If she ends up buying a weapon, it will wear out quickly and she will have to buy a new one. That kind of business doesn't make money, so she plans to fight with her bare hands. I asked her this question, and she shouldn't even dream of becoming a full-time hunter just because she got some money from our raids. She started asking me to stop lecturing her.